Good. So, we left off we sort of made it up to 18, did we?
Tell you in a minute.
I think we did. I think we just turned the corner and we just got onto 18A1. Okay, so is everybody there?
Rabbi, I don't seem to have page 18.
18A1.
See that.
Did you ask him to send it to you? He told us.
Did you ask me to send it to you?
He asked us 2 weeks ago to send us 18 and 19.
One second. Sending it to you as we speak.
I need 18 as well.
Josie, I probably sent it to you. Come on.
No, I asked and I don't think I ever got it.
Okay, hold on a second. Here it comes to Bill and to Josie.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure. I sent it to you on May 10th, Josie. All right. What are you going to do? Now you got it again.
The best we can.
Now you got it again. Okay, so we're in the middle of the Gemara trying to give a rationale for the order of the blessings in the weekday Amidah. And we've gotten through the blessings that have prayed for the ultimate redemption, the defeat of evil, the restoration of Jerusalem and of the Davidic dynasty, which also means the Messianic age. So that's the way that the Talmud understands all those blessings. And now we're at the top of 18A1. So now you have it. Is everybody able to get to there?
Mm-hmm.
And about 4 lines from the top, the Gemara explains. Good?
Got it.
Got it. All right. Well, if you got it, Geraldine, then please read it for us.
The Gemara explains why the blessing for acceptance of prayer is next. And once David comes, prayer will come. As it is said, I will bring them to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer.
So what does that mean? Once David comes, prayer will come. What does that mean?
Well, he's the king. David.
So first of all, let's understand what the prayer is itself, right? What's the prayer, which is what we are referring to here. So wait, I gotta find the text here. I want to read it to you as we have it. 264. 1 second. So here is the way that our new Lev Shalem Sidur translates this blessing. That's what we're going to start using as of June 18th. Summation of requests. Hear our voice. Shma koleinu Hashem Elokeinu. Chuz v'rachem aleinu. Hear our voice, eternal, our Almighty God. That's not the way they translate it, but that's what I do. Be kind and have compassion for us. Willingly and lovingly accept our prayer. For you, God, hear prayers and listen to pleas. Pleas. Right? A plea, many pleas. You listen to pleas. Do not send us away empty-handed, for in your kindness, you listen to the prayers of your people Israel. Baruch atah Hashem, who listens to prayer. Shomrei tefillah. Right? So that's the blessing. So the Gemara is asking, why does this blessing follow after we have already, right after we describe the messianic culmination of all these good things taking place? Why do we then add this blessing about accepting prayer? Accept our prayers. Shema kolenu, hear our voices. So the Gemara's answer is that once David comes, prayer will come. So how do we make sense of that? Don't we pray all the time? Why? Prayer doesn't depend on David. I mean, we're praying right this minute about we're hoping for a messianic age. So here we are, we're praying already. So what do you mean once the Messiah comes, then prayer will come? Yeah, Bill.
The only thing I'm thinking of, Rabbi, I don't remember where I got it from, is the idea that when the messianic age is here, then everything will be perfected. That we may be praying now, but it's somehow incomplete. I'm thinking of the word shvach. I'm not sure if that's the correct word, but it's somehow not in the complete fullness of what it will be when the Messiah has arrived and the messianic age is here. That's the only thing I got.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Yeah, so to follow up on what Bill is saying, first we should a little bit appreciate what the Gemara has done in framing the blessing in this way. What the blessing says is, simply speaking, what we're saying is, God, here I am, I'm standing before you, I'm praying, accept my prayer. Listen to our prayers. Here we are in Shul. We're all praying. Can you please accept our prayers? Can you please listen to us and hear us? Right? That's the simple understanding of what that blessing means. Now that what the Gemara has done is it's changed this idea a little bit by pushing this appeal that we've made into the future. And what it's really saying then is, when the Messiah comes, then will you finally accept all of our prayers? Then let the prayers that we have offered you finally be accepted. May it be your will that eventually, when the world is fixed and repaired and put, back together again and is not broken, then hopefully we will live in a time that is perfected, and that prayer also will be part of a more perfect reality. In what ways today is our experience of prayer broken? Right? Why would it be possible to argue that our prayers today are an imperfect kind of experience or reality? What's wrong with our prayer today, with our prayer experience? Josie?
The world's in terrible shape.
So
what happened to all our prayers for peace that we read on Shabbat? Or
right.
Kindness among people? I mean, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I just don't believe what's going on.
Right.
And I can't watch the news.
Good. That's a very wise decision. I think that that's a good thing to adopt. You can't do anything by watching the news except get upset. So what you're pointing out is our prayers are not being accepted, right? All of the prayers that we have for all these wonderful, high, beautiful values, we prayed yesterday for all these things. So what's going on? So our prayers are unheard. They're not being heard. So then one way that the Gemara is sort of speaking to that is by saying one day they will be heard, right? One day the connection between our praying and God's response will click, okay? So that's one idea. What else? And how else might we say that our prayer experience is broken? I think a lot of people resonate with what Josie is saying, but then they make they've made a decision, or they've inherited this decision, and that is that there's no point to pray. Prayer is itself something that we don't necessarily really believe in. So this is something that I've tried to work against every day that I'm, in the community. When I keep on hacking everybody at China to be quiet during the Amida, right? And some people really don't like that. And the reason that I feel it's so important is because I want people to believe in prayer. And even if you can't pray, at least give somebody else a chance to try to pray. So, praying is not reading the words out of the prayer book. That's not prayer. That's reading. That's recitation. Praying is somehow trying to address God. That's what prayer is. And when you address God, you could be addressing God out of joy. You could be addressing God out of pain and suffering. You could be addressing God out of need. You could be addressing God out of awe. You could be addressing God in so many, ways. But the essential idea of prayer is that I'm standing in front of my Creator and trying to talk to them. And talking to your Creator is not easy. So even if you believe in prayer, you don't always succeed in doing it. Even if you somehow embrace this idea, I'm going to open up my mouth and open up my heart, right? And somehow focus my attention toward this being that I have no concept of, that I can't see, I can't touch, right? God does not make it very easy to do this. But the truth of the matter is that the people in our world that we can see and that we can touch, we have a lot of tough times sometimes actually really talking to them also. It's not always so easy to meaningfully talk. Just a few minutes ago when we were in Pirkei Avot, Josie, you brought up, a difficult situation where somebody says something and you don't know what to say. You don't know how to have a conversation with them. So talking to another person, a real person, is hard enough. So can you imagine if you're trying to talk to this amorphous, abstract, transcendent being? So it requires a certain kind of, spiritual acrobatics, and we don't always succeed in doing that, or we don't even believe in doing it. And one of the great arguments against doing it is that it's a bunch of hokum, because you go through all these prayers and none of them get answered. So what's the point? So we live in a very, certainly among Jews, super skeptical, super secularized environment. But even in the time of the Talmud, there were plenty of other systems out there. There are plenty of other philosophies, and there are plenty of other suggestions about how to pray, who to pray to, and so on. So the idea that you really will be able to pray and then hope for the best and hope to be heard. On our own side, forget about that God doesn't respond. On our own side, it's hard to do that. So one of the things that the Talmud is saying is that's going to ease up. Part of the messianic reality is not just world peace, just world peace. I mean, can you imagine world peace? That would be such a transformation of human nature to get to the point where people didn't, nation shall not lift up sword against nation. That would require such a huge change of the way that we think and act. And then the basically implicitly what the Talmud is saying is, and then prayer will come. If that kind of transformation actually happens, then praying will become actually much more natural. Half of our prayers in the morning are celebrating the fact that everything else in the world prays automatically. The only creature that doesn't pray automatically is the human being. The stones pray, the sky prays, the birds pray, the dog prays, the cat prays, all of creation. That's what we say, nishmat kol chai, the soul of every living creature prays to God. All of the Psalms that we recite in the morning in the warm-up prayers are all a celebration of the fact that the snow prays, the wind and the rain prays, right? In other words, everything that does its natural duty in the world is a reflection back to God of God's greatness. The only creature that has some kind of difficulty in that kind of natural connection is us, because we have free will, because we have a consciousness, because we have our own self-regard, we have a sense of separation and identity. So it's hard for us to be natural, right? Doing what comes naturally, right? We second guess everything. Everything becomes something for us to question and to wonder about. So partly what the Gemara is saying is, so that kind of wholeness that could be conceived of theoretically about prayer, it's not reality now. Sometimes if you're lucky, you can touch it. Sometimes if you're lucky for a moment, you can feel it, but then it goes away. But that's part of the messianic dream. Part of the messianic dream is that sense of wholeness will be in the prayer itself. Let's look at the proof text. What's the proof text that the Gemara brings? Josie, Geraldine, you just read it a minute ago, right?
Yes.
What is it said? What does it say?
The Gemara explains why the blessing, the acceptance of prayer, is next. And once David comes, prayer will come. As it is said, I will bring them to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer.
So I will bring them to my holy mountain is the end of days, the messianic era. And then I will make them joyful beveit tfilati, in my house of prayer. So prayer comes after we all get assembled at God's mountain. Who is being assembled? Who's being brought to the mountain? Everyone, the whole world. The messianic vision that this is quoting is saying that everybody, all of the nations will flow toward the mountain of God. And then the whole world will be filled with the knowledge of God. The knowledge of God, meaning the connection with God, will fill the entire world the way that the waters fill the ocean. So this is a universal concept. It's not just the Jews will finally be able to come back to their house of prayer. Today is Yom Yerushalayim. I gave a little kvetch yesterday at Kiddush that besides it being Memorial Day, it's Jerusalem Reunification Day in the Jewish calendar. And the idea that we should be happy that Jerusalem was united once again and wasn't split with a wall in between, theoretically, that's absolutely the case. However, what have we done with that reunification? We have turned it into a fascist, xenophobic excuse for Jewish supremacy against anybody else. Jerusalem is not united. Jerusalem has been taken over by right-wing Jews to the exclusion of any other non-Jews, Arab or otherwise, and any other Jews who don't share in that kind of jingoistic philosophy. When we were split apart, and Jordan had control of East Jerusalem, and we had control of West Jerusalem. So we were very, very rightfully so, very distressed, very outraged that Jordan didn't respect our holy sites. Right? So they took gravestones and they used them as paving for streets or for building materials. Terrible things, terrible, unexcusable things. We forget about what we do to Muslim areas and to Christian areas. We trash our own areas. Look at the way that the Orthodox attack people who come to the Western Wall, and they legally have this set aside spot off on the side. God forbid they should be too close to the holy Jews. That's supposed to be an egalitarian spot, and they take it over. And they bully everybody and use violence and force to prevent people from coming to the wall as Jews. We have it right. Today, a march was organized that was authorized by the government, by the state, right? So Jews should be able to run around yelling and screaming against the Arabs in the Muslim quarter in Jerusalem. Remember the day when we were upset that the Nazis were marching in Skokie, right? How dare they? Why? Let them march someplace else. So, and then we do it. So Jerusalem is not supposed to be an exclusive property. It's supposed to be, in the end of days, it's supposed to be a place where everybody can feel at home, where God's house of prayer will be a universal house of prayer, where everybody will feel that they can come in close to God. And that's also part of this natural idea. If prayer is going to become natural, then prayer will become universal, because we're all children of God. So it should all naturally flow from each and every one of us. I've quoted him in the past, my mentor, Rabbi Chaim Hershenson, who I never met. He died in 1935. But he, after the Balfour Declaration, he said, whoa, this is a turning point in history. We're going to end up having a Jewish homeland. We're going to have responsibility for how to live in the Holy Land with some power. He said, what are we going to do about the Temple Mount? And he said, what we should do about the Temple Mount is we should turn it into a universal house of prayer with no exclusionary religious symbols. It shouldn't be as a place that one symbol is there at the expense of any other religious symbol. It should be opened up as an interfaith, non-denominational, sacred space so that everybody can come and pray in whatever way they want to pray, in whatever way they believe. So this guy was a guy with a long white beard, and a black coat and so on. But he knew Gemara. He knew what was really this kind of stuff, without being swayed by nationalist jingoism. I mean, he was a tremendous Zionist. He was a tremendous believer in the Jewish people and in the Torah. He's a tremendous, scholar, a Talmud Chacham of the first rank. He's a Gaon. He was a genius, and that's what he said. Of course, where did he say it? He said it in Hoboken, because he was chased out of Israel by the ultra-Orthodox. So, so this is the tragedy of our own making, when we don't understand the riches and the depth of our own tradition. Okay. Now, to make it more complicated, the Gemara continues.
Okay, wait. The Gemara explains why the blessing, is that where you want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the temple service.
Okay, the Gemara explains why the blessing for the temple service is next.
Okay, let me just read it to you again. What's the traditional blessing? Now, this blessing already is one of the last three blessings. So this blessing that I'm about to read to you is not just for the weekday. This blessing is every single day, no matter what. Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Pesach, Shavuos, Rosh Chodesh, doesn't matter. These are the last three blessings of the Amidah, always included in every Amidah. So it says, Ritzei Hashem Elokeinu v'Amcha Yisrael v'Tfilatam. So Hashem Elokeinu, embrace your people Israel and their prayer. Restore worship to your sanctuary. May the prayers of the people Israel be lovingly accepted by you. And may our service always be pleasing. May our eyes behold your compassionate return to Zion. Baruch atah Hashem, who restores your divine presence to Zion. So this prayer is very specifically about the people Israel, the temple itself, right? Restoring God's presence to Zion. This is a very, very focused prayer and blessing upon the Jewish religious needs that we have. So if we follow backwards again to the previous blessing, so the previous blessing says, hear our voice, Hashem Elokeinu. Be kind and have compassion for us. Willingly and lovingly accept our prayer. For you, God, hear prayers and listen to pleas. Do not send us away empty-handed. For in your kindness you listen to prayers. And then we have in our text to the prayers of your people Israel. Right? Ki ata shomea tfilat amcha Yisrael barachamim. With compassion, with love, with mercy. Okay? So, but actually, as the Gemara just explained, the prayer vision that we have for the end of days is that everybody will be praying. Not just the Jewish people. Everybody will be praying. The whole world is going to make pilgrimage to God's holy mountain, and that will be God's Beit Tfilati, the house of my prayer. So it's interesting that in the Sephardi Nusach, this prayer does not say, Ki ata shomea tfilat amcha Yisrael barachamim. It doesn't say you listen to the prayers of your people Israel with mercy. It says, Ki ata shomea tfilat kol peh. Because you listen to the prayer of every mouth, of anyone praying. And then the next blessing is the blessing that we have, please, and then please accept our prayers. We shouldn't be chopped liver. Let the Jewish people's prayers also be accepted, right? So the logic goes from that inclusive blessing for everybody, and then to the blessing that says, okay, so here we are now, we're praying, please accept our praying as well. I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense. I think it's very meaningful. It's a shame that in all of the adjustments that have been made, that wasn't adopted. In my opinion, that's a much more appropriate way to recite that blessing. Okay, So here we are. So now the question is, why is this blessing next? What does the Gemara say?
The Gemara explains why the blessing for the temple service is next. And once prayer comes, the temple service will come, as it is said in the continuation of that very verse. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be acceptable upon my altar. The Gemara explains.
Okay, wait, that's enough. So that's the answer, right? The answer is, as we've done before, we find the ordering of the blessings alluded to in the phrases, the order of the phrases in a verse. So that's the full verses. V'aviotim el hakodesh v'simachtim bebeit tfilati oloteihem v'zivcheihem l'ratzon al mizbechi ki veiti beit tfilah yikarei l'chol ha'amim. So the end of the verse is, my house shall be a house of prayer for all the peoples. But before that, it says their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar. That's the whole verse. So therefore, the Gemara says, so you see, after we talk about prayer being accepted, then we talk about that we should also be able to do this version of how we come close to God, which is the sacrificial system. So we want that restored for us as well. That's our type. What another people needs to do, that's up to them, between them and God. But we have the revelation from the Torah that we have to come close to God with these sacrifices and offerings. So that will be our way of doing it. Everybody else, it's a beit tfilah l'chol ha'amim. It's going to be a house of prayer for everybody. Each one will have to figure out with God what the appropriate way for them is to connect up with God. So that's the answer here. As an editorial comment, unfortunately, and I think that this is kind of a little bit of a chronic weakness in the Masorti conservative heritage. How many people here, raise your hand, how many people here want the sacrificial system restored? I don't see any hands being raised. Wait, here's Bill, look at that. He's raising half a hand.
Where will all the sheep come from?
Yeah.
It's a half a hand. I'm actually very conflicted about it. And certainly when I conjure up, what it would mean in practical terms with all the offal and all the rest of that, and all the rest of that, then I'm not so sure. But I'm not willing to write off some version of it. What that would mean in practical terms, I don't know. I'm not willing to write it off. Although I must say that I'm very taken with, I guess it was from Isaiah's notion that the temple will become a house of prayer for all people. How to what's the word, make that congruent with the restoration of Jewish sacrifices, I don't know. That's where I am.
Right. So good. So I'm glad. Thank you for your honesty. But at least what you're doing is you're leaving it as an open question, right? So how does the conservative movement deal with this? The conservative movement deals with it. If you take the Sim Shalom prayer book, then if you take the Musaf, which is where the sacrifices are mentioned in detail for Shabbat, for festivals, right? So if I can find my Sim Shalom prayer book, which I cannot.
I have the old one.
Okay, I probably the old one, it's the same thing. But anyway, what you might notice is that everything is translated in Sim Shalom, except the sacrifices, right? Every page is translated. Aleinu is translated, Shema is translated, the Amida is translated, every blessing is translated until we get to the sacrifices. And then they just give it to you there as a list of paragraphs that you choose for what the appropriate moment, and they don't translate it at all. this is to me such a disingenuous approach. Because it's a bad conscience they have. They don't feel that, after all, we're a very traditional movement. So how could we take out the thing? So there is an alternative. They offer an alternative for those people who don't want to talk about the sacrifices. But for those people who say, I can't let go of it, they give it to you, but they figure, all right, but you guys don't need a translation because you're just mumbling the words anyway. So why should you have to have a translation?
This book translates on Shabbos, though.
The Shabbos one, but not the rest of the ones.
Correct.
Right. So there's no logic to this. The logic is avoidance. The logic is dishonesty. So it's just saying, well, we can't get rid of it, so we'll just make it so that nobody knows what we're saying. So that's how we get away with it. What's worse then is that I've seen this in the Machzor. So wait, I'll go backwards a second, right? In this text, we have again, embrace your people Israel and their prayer. Restore worship to your sanctuary. Then it says, and their prayers of the people may you lovingly accept. Okay? The original text is, V'ishei Yisrael utfilatam be'ahavat tekabel ratzon. And may the fiery offerings of your people, as well as their prayers, be acceptable to you. So they took out that word because they don't want to talk about that the offering should be acceptable. Right? So they take it out, they edit it out. All right, so that's the words of prayer. What gets me is that in the Machzor for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the end of the davening says that it quotes this verse that the Gemara is using here. It quotes this verse that says, "V'haviotim el har kodeshi v'simachtim bebeit tfilati olotehem v'zivchehem l'ratzon al mizbechi ki veiti beit tfilah yikarei l'chol ha'amim." That's the complete verse. When they quote the verse, they gut the middle part of the verse. They don't quote the part that says the words of the sacrifice. They say, "V'haviotim el har kodeshi v'simachtim bebeit tfilati ki veiti beit tfilah yikarei l'chol ha'amim." They edit out the verse. It says, and they go as the verse says, and they only give you the front part of the verse and the end part of the verse, and they don't even give you an ellipsis. They don't even give you a ... to show you that they've left something out. I find that so dishonest. Frankly, most people have never noticed this. When I lead the services on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's in Musaf. I recite the middle of the verse that they leave out of the text. I recite the word V'ishei Yisrael when I lead Musaf, because I think that it's important to put it out there. What it means, I think that's where Bill's thinking is very valuable. What it means is for us to really struggle with. But it can mean many things. It can mean all kinds of other things. To quote Rabbi Hershenson again, Rabbi Hershenson had a correspondence back and forth with Rav Kook. They lived at the same time. They died the same year. Rav Hershenson was about 10 years older. And Rav Kook had great respect for him. But Rav Kook was angry at Rav Hershenson because Rav Hershenson said, we're not giving sacrifices anymore. We're done with the sacrifices. Been there, done that. We're not giving sacrifices anymore. And Rav Kook said, please, look at it. We have it in our prayers that we're supposed to give sacrifices. The Torah is eternal. So Rav Hershenson said, when we will give sacrifice, I pray for sacrifices too, but I have no idea what those sacrifices will look like. It will be a totally transformed world. if human nature will be transformed to the point where we actually will be making peace with each other, then the sacrifices will also be transformed. It will be spiritual sacrifices. There'll be a spiritual olah. There'll be a spiritual shlamim. There'll be something that will be a spiritual equivalent of that ritual that supplies the need for the heart of the human being to reach out to God, but it won't be sprinkling blood all over the place and cutting up the guts of the animal. He says we're beyond that. We cannot go backwards. We cannot lie about who we are. And he quotes from our Musaf, where it says, I have to rewind my tape here to get to the text, right? Yes. So if you look at the Sabbath prayer, it says, we shall, and Geraldine, you've got it there, right? You've got the Sabbath Musaf, right? You found it?
Yes.
Right? So it says, right, that Musaf Yom HaShabbat Hazeh.
Shnei Kvashim.
No, before you get to that, go a few lines before that.
All right. May it be your will, Lord our God and God of our ancestors, who restores his children to their land, to lead us in joy to our land and to settle our people within its borders. There, our ancestors sacrificed to you with their daily offerings and with their special offerings, and there may we worship you with love and reverence as in the days of old and ancient times.
Right. So there, what the conservative movement did was they took the traditional text and they turned it around. The traditional text says, please bring us back in joy to our land and to our settled places. And then we will perform before you all of our offerings. And as it says here, it says our ancestors once offered to you their sacrifices. The original words are, where we will offer to you our sacrifices. We will in the future. Now it became the past. They turned it into, well, they once upon a time offered those sacrifices. The daily sacrifices in their proper order, as well as the additional offerings prescribed for holy days. Lovingly, the additional Shabbat sacrifices were offered there as you commanded. So that Musaf Yom HaShabbat Hazeh Na'aseh v'nakbil lefanecha b'ahava k'mitzvat ritzonecha, as you commanded. Right? Is that in the Sim Shalom that you have, Carolyn?
You want me to read the Hebrew to you?
No, I want the English.
Okay. There, our ancestors sacrificed to you with their daily offerings and with their special offerings, and there may we worship you with love and reverence as in the days of old and ancient times. And the special offering for Shabbat they offered lovingly according to your will, as written in your Torah through Moses, your servant.
Right. So they translated k'mitzvat ritzonecha, as according to your will, right? And here we have, as you commanded. That's in the Lev Shalem. K'mitzvat ritzonecha. So Rav Hershenson points out that phrase is never found regarding anything else except the sacrifices. We will offer the sacrifices k'mitzvat ritzonecha, as you desire and command. He goes, what do you mean? We don't say we're going to keep Shabbos as you desire and command. You already commanded it. We're going to keep Shabbos. We're going to eat kosher because you commanded it. What does it mean as you desire and command? So he says it means when we get to the Messianic days, you'll command us how to give sacrifices in a way that will be appropriate to the Messianic day. Mitzvat Ritzonecha will then clarify what is the spiritual sacrifice that we will offer. It'll be a sacrifice. We will give the sacrifices that are appropriate to each special occasion. But they're not going to be a goat with its throat slit. It'll be some kind of sacrifice that you will command. When the Messianic era comes, this will become clear for us. So this is how he answers Rav Kook. So he said it in the future. He didn't change the text, but he imbued the text and he carefully read the text in a way that opened up the text to have meaning that was faithful to all of this, earlier tradition. Right? He didn't just pay lip service to it. He was very courageous. He was honest, but he was committed with his honesty. He said, I have to be honest, but I'm also committed. So therefore, I'm going to push to understand this better. And he came up with understandings that nobody else came up with. David.
Are these letters compiled and
he published them. He published them, but they're all in Hebrew. He published them. He published a multi-volume set of responsa, right? She'elotu Tshuvot. It's called Malki Bakodesh, and My King in the Sacred Place. And it's 6 volumes, and it's all devoted to meeting the challenges of modern life. Wow. And he wrote them all in the teens, 20s, and 30s, and he published them. And every time he would publish the first volume, then he would get reactions. So he would publish the next volume, and then in the back of the next volume, he would publish the correspondence of rabbis who attacked him and rabbis who praised him, and so on. And that all as correspondence with Rav Kook is published in those volumes.
And do people
that's how I know about them. Because that's what I was looking at. So so they're there. And of course, then they went out of print. But now they're slowly being republished. Yeah, what were you saying?
Do people study them today? Is it a part of a curriculum?
So he was rediscovered. He was forgotten for 40 years because he was marginal. He wasn't in the land of Israel. In America, nobody cared, and in Israel, he was kicked out. So, Rav Kook was the superstar and Rav Hershenson was neglected. So in 1979, Professor Eliezer Schweid, who just passed away this year, Zechrono Livracha, he published a groundbreaking monograph, a study where he rediscovered Rav Hershenson, and he wrote a book called Demokratia V'Halacha, Democracy and Halacha. And it's a study of the basics of Rav Hershenson's thought. So that was 1979, and that was the breakthrough. And since then, there's been more and more interest, but I think it sort of tapered off a little bit, unfortunately. I think that it is a little bit kind of exhausted, literally. I think that people are exhausted because it's a losing fight. It hasn't been seen as the way forward. There's too much of an investment in other ways of doing things. I mean, Rav Kook is a god in the religious Zionist camp, so you can't disagree with Rav Kook. And of course, the ultra-Orthodox have no use for him or for Rav Kook either. So, I've seen, discussions saying, you don't have to even pay attention to Rav Hershenson because the great ones, the Gedolim, don't quote his work, which is not quite true, but it certainly is becoming more and more true. So, historically, what's going to happen? Right now, we're in a very terrible place. Right now, we're not in good shape. Just as we're not in good shape in this country, I think that religiously speaking, the Jewish people are not in great shape because all of the creative, caring efforts that are made in the non-Orthodox world have a lot of trouble gaining traction. And what's not parallel to the America. In America, we're living under the dictatorship of a minority, right? Right now, the right wing does not speak for the majority of America. Nevertheless, they've, in genius fashion, they figured out how to take the reins of power, in the states, in the Supreme Court. They stop anything from happening in Congress. I was reading, when was it? Yesterday, that Mitch McConnell is sitting in his office getting reports that maybe, God forbid, there would be a gun control bill that might get 60 votes. That means, in other words, 10 Republican senators might actually try to act like a human being. So he's getting the reports because he's monitoring that, because if he sees that might happen, he'll come in with the filibuster. And then the filibuster will stop the vote, and this filibuster needs to be broken by 61 votes. So of course the Republicans, God forbid, shouldn't break party ranks. That's their golden calf. So that's his. So the fact that 85% of America wants gun control doesn't matter. So we're not in America. We're under a minority rule. Same thing with Roe v. Wade. In Israel and in the Jewish people, give us another generation, and the majority of the Jewish people may well be ultra-Orthodox. So it won't be the rule of the minority, which is what it is now. It'll be the rule of a majority, because that's who's proliferating. So we're in very, very sad shape. In my view, the creative, decent, heartfelt approaches, whether to American living or to Jewish living, they're there. They're inspiring. They're amazing. They don't get the support that they deserve. They don't get the support that they deserve. The majority looks the other way. How could it possibly be that the majority, when they're asked a simple question, do you want gun control? Yes. Do you therefore want to vote for a Republican? Yes. How do people do that? I don't understand. So what can I say? I mean, forget about it, right? The fact that we have something called AIPAC in the Jewish community, which is an advocacy organization that has a long history of playing in a bipartisan way. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it was always right-wing, but it could sort of argue that it wasn't. The fact that it endorsed over 100 Republican politicians who are running for office in the primaries and in the elections for now coming up, over 100 Republican politicians who say that Biden is not the president, that the election was a fraud. They endorse them. Why? Because these Republicans, love Israel. Putting the embassy in Jerusalem is worth murdering 19 children. It's worth it, because at least then we have the embassy in Jerusalem. So what's good for Israel, then other people have to pay the price. As if that's good for Israel. We're in a very sick time. We're in a very, very bad time. And the people that understand that are not able to generate the support that's needed. All right, enough of the soapbox. Now back to the Gemara.
Okay. The Gemara explains why the blessing for Thanksgiving is next. And once the temple service comes, Thanksgiving will come. The Gemara inquires.
No, you skipped a line.
I'm sorry. As it is said, he who offers thanksgiving honors me. Okay,
so the word offers here is what's the operable, that the offering here is ve'ach, which means an offering that is a sacrifice, right? So ve'ach todah yachateni. So a person who offers that kind of sacrifice, that of thanksgiving, that's a true honoring of God. The Thanksgiving prayer, of course, is a very beautiful prayer. Again, it's the next to last prayer of the Amidah. It's in every single Amidah. And I'll read to you the translation as we have it in the Lev Shalem. Modim anachnu lach, shatahu Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avotenu leolam va'ed. We thank you, for you are ever our God and the God of our ancestors. You are the bedrock of our lives, the shield that protects us in every generation. We thank you and sing your praises for our lives that are in your hands, for our souls that are under your care, for your miracles that accompany us each day, and for your wonders and your gifts that are with us each moment, evening, morning, and noon. You are the one who is good, whose mercy is never ending, the one who is compassionate, whose love is unceasing. We have always placed our hope in you. So this is the beginning of the Thanksgiving blessing. And then it continues, for all these blessings, may your name be praised and exalted, our sovereign, always and forever. And then may all that lives thank you always and faithfully praise your name forever, God of our deliverance and our help. Baruch atah Hashem, your name is goodness, and praise of you is fitting. Hatov Shimcha, your name is the good one, Hatov. So who are we thanking? We're thanking God, the good one. And we're praying that everybody should be able to thank. May all who are alive be able to thank you. This is a universal prayer again. So we have the specific prayer of the temple service for the offerings of the people of Israel. And then we thank God for the miracles, the daily moment by moment miracles that we enjoy, our lives, our souls, the sun shining, the fact that we can breathe. All of this stuff is a miracle. Thank you, God. And may everybody be able to thank you. So this is a prayer again for non-exclusivity. If we have it good, may everybody have it good, because you're the good one. Geraldine, yeah.
Why is that alternative prayer of Modi Manach Lach recited when we repeat the Amidah?
Excellent. So good. So Geraldine is pointing out that this is the one prayer that when we have an Amidah of the congregation, this is the one prayer that has a parallel recitation. The Shliach Tzibur says something and the congregation says something else. This is the only blessing. All the other blessings, you listen carefully, you listen quietly while the Chazarat Hashatz, the repetition of the Amidah, goes through all of the words. But here, this is added. So while the representative of the community says the words that I just read, there's a paragraph that is supposed to be recited simultaneously by everybody in the congregation. And it reads like this: we thank you for the ability to acknowledge you. Right? So we're thanking you for the ability to thank you. You are our God and the God of our ancestors, the God of all flesh, of everyone, our creator and the creator of all. We offer praise and blessing to your holy and great name for granting us life and for sustaining us. May you continue to grant us life and sustenance. Gather our dispersed to your holy courtyards, that we may fulfill your mitzvot and serve you wholeheartedly, carrying out your will. May God, the source of gratitude, be praised. So Geraldine's question is, so it's a beautiful prayer. Why was this added? What might be suggested? Anybody have any ideas? I mean, I think yeah, go ahead, Geraldine. Yeah, wow.
The alternative one mentions everyone, whereas the one we pray mentions us.
Well, to be specific, the one that the Shliach Tzibur says out loud,
right,
is completely universal.
Yes.
Right? The one that we say in an undertone while the Shliach Tzibur is saying those words, and by the way, another editorial comment, you shouldn't just end the paragraph. You should say, if you are the Shliach Tzibur, if you are leading the Amidah on behalf of the community, you need to say every single word out loud, just like you've said every other word out loud of the prayer. It's a very incorrect practice to say this part silently and then just do the last few words out loud. That's not what is mandated for a communal Amidah. When a communal Amidah is recited, every single word is said out loud. But why is this extra silent prayer given? And that is, if we read it, this is because we can't help it. We need to say thank you, right? We're not letting somebody else say thank you for us. I mean, we are, but we also have to then say, it triggers our own sense. This just highlights to me how crucial this acknowledgement prayer is, that we want people to say this out. What are the first words that we say when we wake up? Modeh ani, that's singular. What's the first words of this prayer? Modim anachnu, right? It's just in plural. It's the same thing. So the idea of expressing gratitude for what we've been given, and it's not that we won the lottery, it's the fact that we're alive. That obligation is the bedrock of everything. And so when we get to actually mentioning gratitude, so this is a kind of a script that says, oh, this should trigger you to be saying thank you as well. So don't just let it be abstractly mentioned in your name. Say thank you. So we all say thank you in that silent prayer. Very important. Yeah, good. All right.
Rabbi.
Yes, David.
Are we, just to recap and solidify what we're doing now, are we saying that the Ritzei paragraph ends with the bracha?
Yeah, that's the end.
Yeah,
that's the end of that. That's the end of that bracha. Right.
And the Modim
is the next
paragraph
bracha.
Ends with Hatov Shimcha Lachon Elodo.
Right.
It is okay.
Right, and that's the same word, right? Modim lehodot.
Yeah.
Right. So each one is thematically integrated. Right. Okay. So good. Where are we now? The Gemara inquires.
Oh, wait, let me get it. The Gemara inquires, and why did they see fit to say the priestly blessing after the blessing of Thanksgiving? The Gemara answers, for it is written, Aaron raised his hands towards the people and blessed them, and he descended from having performed the
Chatat.
offering, the Olah offering, and the Shlamim offering.
Okay, so how does that prove anything? So read note 5, please.
Okay, let me find it. Leviticus 9. Aaron blessed the people after having performed the sacrificial service. On the basis of this verse, the sages placed the priestly blessing in the section of Shmoneh Esrei that follows, the blessing for the temple service. The Gemara below asks why the priestly blessing does not immediately follow the blessing for the temple service without the interposition of the Thanksgiving blessing.
Right. So in other words, we just had a blessing just a half a second ago, because everybody recites the Amidah very fast. So just a half a second ago, we said the blessing about restoring the sacrifices to the temple. So then we remember that when the sacrificial service was concluded by Aaron, he then turned around and blessed the people. This was when the Mishkan was first initiated, was first started, right? So therefore, temple service, conclusion of that, bless the people. The Kohen blesses the people that are congregated there. So that's why we follow that paradigm as well, says the Talmud. And then of course the note says, be patient. Yes, we also though said the modim first. Why didn't we put the priestly blessing right after Ritzei? Why didn't we do that? We'll get to that in a half a second. Okay, but that's the idea. So we are following here historical precedent, right? Okay. David, you wanted to say something? Okay. So now the Gemara asks.
The Gemara answers. I'm sorry. I thought it said the Gemara inquires, why did they see fit to say the priestly blessing after the blessing of Thanksgiving? The Gemara answers, for it is written, Aaron raised his hands toward the people and blessed them, and he descended from having performed the chatas offering. I just read that. The Olah offering and the Shlamim offering. The Gemara challenges this proof, but say that the priestly blessing comes before the temple service, for that is the order in which they are mentioned in this verse.
All right, not the strongest question. In the verse, it says that Aaron blessed the people, having done the sacrifices. So blessing is mentioned first and then sacrifices. So maybe that's what we should do. We should bless the priestly blessing and then talk about the sacrifices. What's the Gemara answer?
The Gemara answers, do not let that suggestion enter your mind. For in that verse, it is written, and he descended from having performed the chatas offering, etc. Is it written to perform?
To perform in the future? No.
It is written from having performed, which implies that Aaron recited the priestly blessing after having performed the sacrificial service.
After. So that's what we do. It's not the order of the words in the verse. It's what the verse is telling us chronologically happened. Okay. Keep going.
Since the verse implies that the priestly blessing follows the temple service, the Gemara asks, then say the priestly blessing immediately after the blessing of the temple service. Why was the blessing of Thanksgiving placed between them? The Gemara answers, do not let that suggestion enter your mind, for as mentioned above, it is written, he who offers thanksgiving, which teaches that Thanksgiving must follow the temple service.
Okay, or we might say, instead of the editorial comment here, that Thanksgiving is a sacrifice. right? Zivchei Todah, the Todah, the thank you, is a zevach, is a sacrifice. So it counts as part of the temple service. It counts as part of the sacrifices. It's a giving the way that a sacrifice is a giving. We use the word sacrifice, and unfortunately, it always has the connotation of some painful relinquishing, right? We make sacrifices for our country. But that's not what the word korban means. Korban means drawing near. It's an offering. It's a gift. So now what the Gemara is saying is just saying thank you is a gift. That's also a gift, right? To express one's gratitude is itself an offering. So that's part of the temple offering itself. And then we have the priestly blessing. Let's finish just till the break here, and then we'll call it a day.
Okay.
Gemara continues.
The Gemara continues. Wait a minute. Let me see where I am. The Gemara continues to ask, but why do you rely on this verse, which teaches that Thanksgiving follows the temple service? Rely instead on the other verse, which teaches that the priestly blessing follows the temple service. The Gemara answers, logically, the temple service and Thanksgiving are one. Therefore, they are juxtaposed in the sequence of blessings.
They're all considered one connected unit. And then the blessings come afterwards. That's what we were saying before. Okay, we're going to stop here. Next week is Shavuos, as I said earlier this morning. So we're not going to be joining for Talmud. Everybody's invited to celebrate Shavuos with the Tikkun Saturday night at Ner Tamid, and then with davening 9:30 in the morning on Sunday, 9:30 in the morning on Monday. Yizkor is also on Monday. Okay, Zayg isn't everybody.
Rabbi,
Yes. What?
yeah, is the 9:30 services on Sunday in lieu of the minyan?
Yes,
Yes,
it's yep.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Good.
They say